Joining us now to talk about how to cope with this political stress is mental health expert Dr. Charryse Johnson, friend of the show. First of all, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Important conversation.
Important conversation. Yeah. Jason, you were just talking with Dr. Johnson about what's going on in Arizona, how things shifted.
You know, it's interesting. We were just talking to you, Charryse. Obviously, you're not here in person. You're in Arizona at a conference out there. And Arizona, again, one of the battleground states that also ended up going for Trump. And this is such a heavy topic, right? People dealing with the stress, the anxiety, the outcome of the elections, so much so that you guys yesterday completely pivoted at this conference to talk about the mental well-being of what we're dealing with. That's huge, Charryse.
Accurate. We have a diverse group of people that are here. So anytime you have a diverse group of people, you're going to have a diverse group of opinions and support that's necessary. So we absolutely got together early yesterday and made a pivot so that we could give people a frame that they could use to talk about what they were experiencing in a collective way, and then how to take care of themselves moving forward.
Dr. Johnson, one of the things that has come up, and this is not an indictment on anybody who voted Republican or not, but one of the things that we've seen, unfortunately, is the amount of hate speech that has come out from certain people. And one of the things going around there, aside from comments being made in person, some of these text messages that we've seen, and Jason, we were talking about this in the newsroom, we actually have one here. It's a text being sent saying, "You've been selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation, be ready by 1 p.m. You actually know people that have received this. You've seen these text messages. Yeah. Where do we even begin? How do you cope with something like this?
It is very difficult to cope with something that you would expect yourself to never receive. You know, it's egregious. It's very traumatic and hurtful to the people that receive them. We're seeing individuals of color receive them from all different ages. So whether they're students on a college campus or adults, this is very hurtful and leads then to some levels of anxiety and fear.
Okay, so how do you... First of all, we don't know if it's 100% real. You know, it's hard to know now with the AI. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. I mean, it does, yeah. But the impact to those that are receiving it, that is real, right? And so yes. How do you just disregard it? And then how do you, for those that maybe feel like there's a little freedom to say what they want to say, even if it's hurtful to the people online or the people that you work with, how do you live in a society that just kind of says, I'm going to do and say whatever I want. I have that right.
Sure. Well, one of the first things that we want to do is to acknowledge what we're feeling and not necessarily disregard it, because when we try to disregard things, they can stack up and pile up, and it makes it difficult for us to figure out what's happening. We need to take the time to acknowledge, how do we feel? What do we need to move forward? And how can we really focus on what's in our locus of control versus our locus of concern? And then as a nation, we really need to be kind and considerate and recognize that anytime we have a democratic election, there will always be those who are happy and there will always be those who are struggling. But as a people, we need to make sure that we treat each other as such and with respect.
I know we're short on time, but I do want to ask you, what does a nation need to do, people need to do to try to come together? Because obviously this is so divisive there. So how do we begin to mend some of the fractures that have been sparked by the political ads and the election?
Sure. One of the things that I encourage is everything we think we don't need to put in writing. We need to be very cautious about the words that we choose and really ask ourselves, is this helpful? How will this impact other people who feel differently? And then from there, we need to focus on what we do best, which is coming together, supporting our community, being advocates, and moving forward on one accord and making sure that we look out for those that are feeling marginalized and those that are worried about their future.
How can we be the first person that steps into an arena that is full of tension, knowing whether it's coworkers or wherever? How do we start that conversation when you know you don't agree and just be like, listen, I know the outcome isn't what you wanted. I still love you as a brother, as a friend. How do you start that?
Part of that is what you do. You get together and you take the time to say, we have differences, and everyone sitting around the table here in this organization may not all agree, but we're here for a purpose, and let's focus on the purpose at hand and have conversations with an objective support person as necessary.